Hi everyone, it's Kristie here with another video for Two Scrapbook Friends. Today we're going to be focused on making a Mother's Day card. And I've got the list of supplies here and I'll put that up again at the end of the video so that you can take a screenshot if you're interested in making this card on your own, or if using these products inspires you to do other things and make some cards with new ideas. So we'll get this out of the way right now as we get started with our project. And again, I'll pop that up at the end. So today we're going to be focused on using a new stencil from Tailored Expressions. This is from their new stencil package. You actually get 12 stencils in a pack, one for really themed around each month of the year. So in the winter months, we have things like snowflakes and Christmas trees, leaves in the fall, and for spring, there is a flower option. And I thought that would be great for Mother's Day. So we're going to be using this stencil, and we're also going to be stenciling it on a piece of purple cardstock. Any purple cardstock that's going to coordinate with the Glitz Glitter Gel from Gina K that we're going to be using will work, as long as it's smooth. You want to make sure it's smooth. Anything with a texture can be a little bit more tricky to work with the gel that we're going to be using today. So we're also going to be using Neenah Solar White Classic Crest in the 80 pound for some die cutting, and I have a card base cut out of the Neenah Solar White Classic Crest in the 110 pound. So the end result that we're going for here, and I'll take you through the sketch in a moment, is a standard US A2 size card. So that's 5.5 inches across and 4.25 inches tall. So I've cut this and scored it, and we'll be all ready to put that card together once we get to the final stages. Again, I've got that Glitz Glitter Gel in Wild Lilac from Gina K. We won't open that quite yet. And so a spatula from Nuvo to be able to spread that around. I've got some Bling from Studio Katya. These are the iridescent bubbles. They have a flat back, which is really lovely, and we'll adhere them with our jewel pick tool from Maker Forte. But we will get to that later on in the program. I'm going to be using dies from Pink Fresh Studio, and this is the Adore Alpha set of dies. I love these dies, lots of great things about them. I did the die cutting off camera so that we can focus on some of the assembly pieces. So we'll get to that later, but these dies are really fantastic, and we'll take you through that process when we get there. The other piece of paper that we're going to be using is one of my favorites. This paper is by Lawn Fawn. It's called Sparkle Pixie Dust, and it is absolutely beautiful. The glitter does not come off on this paper. It die cuts great, and you're gonna see how it die cuts the intricate outlines of the letters from those Adore Alpha dies. If you're looking for a sparkle paper, I highly recommend this one. So again, this is Lawn Fawn Sparkle Pixie Dust. Great item to have in your collection. We'll use some purple tape, tweezers, glue, and tape runner to be able to adhere the final card together. So the look that we're going for, again, we're going to have the Landscape A2 card, and I thought we would pop the purple panel up and have the stencil running on a diagonal just for a little bit of interest across the card, and then we'll spell out Mom with those Adore Alpha dies across the bottom. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is a couple of options for purple paper. So again, you want to make sure you've got a smooth piece of cardstock. I thought there are a couple options that might work well that will go really lovely with this Glitz Glitter Gel. So you're going to see the true color of this. Look at that. So lovely. So there's a couple of colors of cardstock that would go well with this. So one is the Color Vibe in Lilac, or the Orchid cardstock from the Stamp Market. So both of those are really good options. So let's get started with our stenciling here. I'm gonna take some purple tape and get this panel popped down onto our media mat so it's not gonna slide around. The final dimensions of the panel that I've cut here, it's 5.25 inches across and 4 inches tall. So again, we're gonna get that nice margin around our final card. So I'm gonna put this on an angle, as I said previously. I think that just adds a little bit of interest to the card. Normally, you know, we're very mindful of our white space on cards. Today, we are gonna be mindful of purple space. I thought the purple was a nice, fun greeting for Mother's Day, and just something a little bit different. Normally I think when I get these gels and pastes, I tend to use white cardstock or black cardstock, and I don't always think of using colored cardstock for them, but I've been trying that out on a few projects lately and getting some really cool results. So one of the things you might want to consider if you were using a stencil, I mean, you could do it with this one, but if you were using a stencil that had a lot of intricate parts to it, I'm not going to push that tape too much down on the paper. Sorry, if you were using a stencil that had a lot of intricate parts, you might want to use the Thermal Web Pixie Spray to adhere it to your paper. This is a light tack repositional adhesive that works really well for stencils. I've used this stencil a couple times and I didn't think I needed the Pixie Spray, so I'm just going to use the purple tape for it for today. Okay, so let's mix up this Glitz Glitter Gel a little bit. Perfect consistency here. We're going to get some on our spatula and start to spread this along our stencil. So I really like this Glitz Glitter Gel from Gina Kagan. This is the one in the Wild Lilac. There's so many different colors. They're really great. They coordinate with other products within the Gina K lines. It's really, really lovely to work with. It goes on really smooth, and you'll see you can just scoop what you don't use off really easily right back into the pot. So you're not getting any waste here. And you see how easy it just slips right off that stencil. Again, if I was using a stencil that was more intricate than this one, I would definitely have my Stencil Pal from Thermal Web handy, but I find this one is pretty easy to work with. The Stencil Pal is great if you're trying to get into, you know, different little nooks and crannies. It can be a really helpful tool. But this is looking pretty good. I think we've got some great coverage. And again, just scraping the rest back into our pot of Glitz Glitter Gel. I just love how glittery these products are and how fast they dry. This gel, I mean, you really don't have to wait too long for it to dry completely. You know, I find usually within about half an hour, you're good to go, and sometimes even less, depending on how much gel or how thick it is that you've applied it. So we're just going to peel back our purple tape here. Just being careful. The purple tape is, you know, light tack, but you still want to be a little gentle as you're working with your paper. So now we are going to peel and reveal from the stencil. And there we go. So we've got a nice little angled flower design, shining really lovely. Got some nice, a little bit of nice dimension with that Glitz Glitter Gel. And we will set this aside to dry. I'm also just going to set my stencil onto a wet baby wipe so that it doesn't get totally dry on to the stencil itself, the Glitz Gel. I'll wash it off later, but I find if you put it in a baby wipe just after you're finished using it, that just helps to not have things, you know, get completely dry on it. And we'll just give our Media Matte a nice wipe here as well. And you can see how easy that Glitz Glitter Gel wipes right off. Okay, now again, through the magic of television, I have a panel that has already dried. So this is a panel that I finished yesterday, and again, it's using the exact same process. So you can see this is the one we just did, and this is the dried one. So same process, but I want to be able to show you exactly how we finish putting the rest of the card together. So let's move on to the portion of the die cutting. So again, I did the die cutting off camera, and we'll do the assembly here together. So I used the Pink Fresh Studio Adore Alpha dies, and these dies are so great. And I love that they cut not only the inside of the letter, so you get that nice block letter, but you also get the really thin outline, which allows you to do some really cool inlay die cutting techniques. So I've cut here several pieces of the letters that we're using. So the M and the O to spell out mom. I've got a layer of the Lawn Fawn Sparkle Pixie Dust paper on the top. And then I have that stacked on 2 layers of the Nina Solar White Classic Crest in the 80 pound, just so we get some nice dimension on our die cuts on our finished card. And then I've also cut out the insides of those letters, and I'm stacking those together as well. So on the top, I've got a piece of the purple cardstock. You could use the same purple cardstock, which is what I'm doing, that we used on the card panel, but you could also use pattern paper. You could use a coordinating color cardstock, whatever your heart desires. You can mix and match these things all together, and that's one of the things I really love about these dies. So let's get to putting the final sets together. Find the tweezers come in super handy for this task. So we're going to be using the liquid glue from Lawn Fawn. I like this glue for these types of activities. It gives you a little bit of playtime, and you have the ability to wiggle things around as you need to. These block letters are super easy to put together. The outline, though thin pieces, are a little trickier. So those tweezers really come in handy for that purpose. So we've got the M put together here, and we'll just set that aside to set up. Get ready to put the O together. And again, for the first M and the O, I did already put the outlines together, but I left the one on the final M so that I can show you a little trick for dealing with these thin die cuts and liquid glue, and one thing I find really helpful to put them together. So let's work on that now. So again, we've got that Lawn Fawn Sparkle Pixie Dust paper, and I'm just gonna dab on some of the Lawn Fawn liquid glue. And sometimes you can see the dots that we get are, like I'm not even pushing on the glue tube, and some of the dots we're getting are a little bit bigger than we need to, and it's gonna squish out all around those M's, and that is not what we want. So I've got a piece of scrap paper that I was just adhering the purple tape to. I'm just gonna put this down, put down that M, and dab off the excess glue. And then peel that up, and you can see there's still, well, you might not be able to see because it's white and clear, but trust me, there's still adhesive on here. So now I can put the other 2 pieces behind, and we can start to put these together. So that didn't go together quite as well as I had hoped, but because we used liquid glue, this is why we do that, we've got a little bit of playtime here to work on putting together the M. And it doesn't take too much time. It's just, you want to, have your patience muscle ready when you're going through this part, because it can be a little finicky, but I think if you've dabbed off a lot of that excess glue, your fingers aren't going to get too gummed up, and you're going to be able to shift around the paper as much as you need to be able to get it all lined up. So we're almost done here, coming to the last part of the M. And I'm just gonna take my tweezers. This is another thing these tweezers are really handy for, because they can squish together those little thin lines, which I find really helpful when I'm working with this die set. So that looks pretty good. So you saw, I struggled a little bit when I first put these together, but in just a little bit of time, it comes together quite nicely. So now we're gonna go back to the easy part. Thank goodness I saved one of these for last. The block ones are definitely easier to put together than the outlines. So we'll pop some adhesive on there and get our last M ready to go. All right, give this a little wiggle. Get it all set up. Perfect. Okay, so we have all of our letters ready to go, and I cut them out of the sparkle paper and the purple cardstock. I tried a couple of different ways, and I initially thought I would just use the outline of the letters on this card, which it looks great. I loved this result, but I thought, oh, you know, is there something else I can do just to make it stand out a little bit more? Have the letters just pop a little bit more. And when I tried putting in the purple cardstock, I thought, oh yeah, that's the look I was going for. So let's get ourselves set up to pop in both the outlines, and then we're gonna pop in the solid pieces of the letters. So I'm just gonna move these out of the way for now. And they're just getting caught a little bit on that glitz glitter gel. So just have to be careful here. Okay, so I'm gonna bring in my T ruler to make sure everything is going to be nice and straight on our finished project. So this looks good. I don't want them too high, and I really want that first M to still be within the flowers. I don't want it to stick up over this line. So let's see if that placement will work. I'll just wiggle these down a little bit further. There we go. I think that's probably good. I'm gonna glue this one down first. That way I can work back from that edge. So I'm gonna grab the tweezers again, and we're gonna put some more adhesive on the back here. Just little dots of the adhesive. It's going to attach really nicely to the purple cardstock and to the glitz glitter gel. I probably shouldn't be doing this right on top of the finished project, so the glue can seep up. So we'll change that for the next time. But you know, we're all learning here, so that's something we'll make sure we take care of for the next letter. Okay, so I'm going to release the letter there. Again, just make sure this is nice and straight, and we'll get our M popped down. So sometimes you can see that the edges are popping up a little bit. If that happens to you, a great solution is to take one of your acrylic blocks and pop it on top. Just give it a little press, and it will help your glue to set up. Now, if you haven't used this Lawn Fawn liquid glue, one of the things that's great about it is that it dries clear. So even if there are little bits of the glue that seep out, it's totally okay because it's going to dry clear and no one is going to see it. So let's move on to the O. And we'll do the outline of the O first. I am not going to put the center in freehand. We're going to make sure we get the block in there first, the block letter of the O in there first. That will be much easier for us to do some placement. So that looks pretty good, but I'll just dab a little bit of the excess off. Come in for placement for the O. And that T ruler's telling us we're all lined up here, so that looks great. And again, I'm just going to take my acrylic block and pop that down a little bit, just so that it sets up totally, and we don't have to worry about any pieces of the letter not sticking totally or peeling up a little bit. That really helps. And again, I said I would learn to not put the glue right on top of my project. So let's try this again, because I can just see a dab of that glue popping right down on that nice purple section of the card that we didn't want anything on, and you know, that wouldn't be so great. So let's just dab off the excess glue there, bring the T ruler in again, and we're almost done with the main part of our lettering here. Okay. So that looks great. Just gonna press down that M with the acrylic block. I learned this tip from Kathy Zilski with the acrylic block, and it's super handy. Okay, so now I know that many of you through the pandemic have been doing lots of puzzles. And here is where your puzzle work is going to come in super handy, because you get to fit these pieces together now just like you would a puzzle. So thankfully that landed right side up and didn't ruin our project. So you just wiggle these around and it will pop right into place into the outline. And I absolutely love that. And again, you could use any different, any kind of paper you wanted for that inlay. I thought the coordinating would be nice to keep this card nice and simple, but you could use whatever you wanted. Some pattern paper, this would be a great use of using up some scraps of pattern paper if you wanted. Now we'll get that O locked into place. And you can see now it'll be really easy to pop in the center of the O. It would have been really difficult to guess where that was going if we didn't put this piece in first. So we'll get going on the last M here and lock this puzzle piece into place. So yeah, your puzzle work, your hobbies are colliding here. Doing puzzles and making your cards. All right, let's get the last part of the inside of the O here finished. Sometimes you get those little bubbles out of your glue tube, and it's nice to just have a piece of scrap paper handy. One, for just dabbing off like we've been doing, and for just popping the little bubbles that come up. So you can see we've got a nice, perfect fit there for the inside of our O. All right, so really like how this is coming together. I'm going to grab my foam tape so that we can pop this panel up onto our finished card. So I'm just going to take a look. I didn't get my foam tape out when we were putting the card together, so I've just got to reach for it here. It's never too far away. That is for sure. Okay, so let's get some foam tape back on the back here. Grab some scissors. And I really like to have this entire panel popped up. I find usually 3 strips of the foam tape. This is the foam tape from 3M. Usually 3 strips are great to give this nice support so that it doesn't get crunched in the mail. We want to make sure our cards are supported as we send them to their recipients. So I'm going to pop off the release paper here. And we're going to grab our card base. And again, that was a card base that I cut beforehand out of the Nina Solar White Classic Crest in the 110 pound. I love that cardstock for card bases. It's really sturdy and holds up really, really well. So if you're looking for cardstock to use for your card bases, I highly recommend that. Now we want to make sure we get this on nice and straight, and to do that, sometimes we need a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue along this foam tape, just so that when we go to stick down our panel, we have a bit of wiggle room. And you may have seen this on one of the other videos that we put together, but this is my secret weapon for getting card panels straight on card fronts. And it's a ruler that I have had for quite a long time in my sewing stash. And it's by Creative Grids, and it really allows you to line things up nice and straight. So the border that we're gonna have around this card is 1/8 of an inch. So what I'm doing is lining up, I got a little bit of glue here, but that's fine. It's going to be covered up. So we've got 1/8 of an inch coming in from the side. So you can see I've lined up with the 1/8 of an inch tick marks along this ruler. And I can see that I can go 1/8 of an inch up and 1/8 of an inch down to be able to make sure this card panel is perfectly straight on the card front. So we can see 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. That looks pretty good. And press down with confidence. That's what I love that ruler for. Really takes the guesswork out of, you know, thinking, oh, am I straight? Am I straight? Really helps to get that, just to take that fear away when you're pushing down onto your final project. So I think the only thing left to do here is to add a little bit of bling. And, you know, our moms deserve a bit of bling, so they're going to get it from this card. And I'm going to use the Maker Forte jewel picker tool. This is a great tool to be able to pick up your jewels. And the jewels that I've chosen today are from Studio Katya. These are the iridescent bubbles. There's a few different sizes that come in this pack. They have iridescent stars, iridescent snowflakes. Everything has a flat back, which is really great to be able to add to your project. They go down really easily, and I thought we could just put a few in the center of these flowers. So aside from being, you know, a really pretty tool to have in your stash, it's really handy because you've got the pick end to move things around, and you've got this sticky end to pick up whichever jewels you're working with on your project. So let's just scoot these around a little bit, see what we've got. I think you know, when you're adding these pieces of bling to your projects, I've learned over the years from other crafters, you know, Kathy Zilski is great at giving design advice. She's a designer by trade. So one of the things I learned from her through some of her classes is that odd numbers of embellishments bring interest to your card. So, you know, when you're putting these things on, think about putting them in, you know, odd numbers. So multiples of 3 and 5, and kind of creating, you know, a line of interest on your card. So again, we've got those flowers going up, we've got our jewels going up. So I think that looks really nice. I'm just gonna move these out of the way of where we want the glue, and then we'll come back in and adhere them down in a moment. So again, just using that Lawn Fawn liquid glue to get some down in the middle of these flowers. When you are adhering jewels with this liquid glue, it is nice to just let the liquid glue set for a moment on your project. It will make it easier for your jewels to stick down, just for a second to let it sit there. And again, great thing about this glue is it dries clear, so I am not worried if a little bit sticks out under these iridescent bubbles. Totally fine. And there we go. That is our finished project for today. I really love how that card came together. You know, it's one of those cards that doesn't have any stamping on it, but we've got lots of different techniques happening. We've got the stencil, the glitz glitter gel, the die cutting and the inlay, and then we also have, of course, the different types of papers that we're working with, which I think really add some nice interest to this card. So here's the list of supplies again, just for your reference, if you want to take a screenshot of that and try this on your own. If you're using these Adore Alpha dies in other ways, I would love to see it. They are one of my favorite die sets in my collection to be able to have on hand. So if you've found new ways of using them in your stash, please pop that in the comments below. So if you have a moment and you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and we will see you next time.